Well, hello and welcome to the Sensibility Show. Today we have DeAnne, who is a kinesiologist and also hypnotherapist. And she does amazing work. I actually refer my clients to DeAnne. And I want to share a lot about what the kinesiology practice is, and also her journey and some of the breakthroughs she's gone through. So first of all, I want to introduce you to DeAnne. Can you please just tell us all about yourself? You're about to launch a new website. You've been practicing this for some time now, and you're taking your business from strength to strength. So I'm just going to give you the limelight here, and you can just share with us a bit about where you're at and also a bit about your journey. How did you get into kinesiology as well?
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. It's just great to work with like-minded people like you that look at what they're doing from a real holistic perspective. And I think, finance is such an important aspect of our lives. It's like air, it's like food. It's something that we have to look at, but it's something that we need to look at holistically as well. Yes, as you said, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and kinesiologist. I've been an integrative practitioner for 10 plus years. I work very holistically, so I draw on all the skill sets that I've been trained in over the last 20 years, such as Ayurvedic medicine and lifestyle, NLP, and I sort of weave it all together, unique for each client. So every session with each person is individual, and it's tailored in their needs and what their outcomes are. How I got into this, I'm ex-corporate, so after finishing university, I started my corporate career with Channel 10 in the marketing department, and I was with them for about 4 years, and then moved on into the motor industry with the German manufacturer Audi, and worked for them both here and overseas. Came back to Australia and was already starting to train in the natural therapies realm. I actually started to train as a naturopath to begin with, because I just loved health and wellness so much. And I'd used the skills. I'd seen another great kinesiologist when I was in the corporate world, and I used kinesiology as a mechanism to help manage my stress. So it was all about just managing my stress, keeping me healthy to deal with those adrenal demands of what a corporate lifestyle was, that I had to live. It was long hours. It was not necessary. It was eating out a lot. I had a lot of travel, especially when I was with Audi. I was in a plane on a regular basis. And even though that sounds quite fun and glamorous, it's actually quite taxing on the body. So I had actually a lot of adrenal fatigue. Thyroid was pretty good, but it was a little bit borderline. And also I wanted to get my body really up to speed before I had kids. So I really made sure that what I was eating suited me. I got plenty of rest and really nurtured and looked after myself through that regard. So yeah, I used natural therapies all through my corporate career. And then after the birth, nearly 10 years ago, of my eldest, Isabel, I was like, I don't want to go back to corporate anymore. I really want to help other people, because I'd go to work and I'd go and do my juice cleanse, and everyone's like, what are you doing? It was like I was speaking a different language. And I just thought everyone knew about this stuff, but they actually don't. So the main focus was me. It was like, okay, I've already educated myself. I'm going to educate myself more. And I'm really going to share what I've learned to everyone else. So that was basically my whole journey. And I just wanted to help others thrive, like I had the pleasure of doing, working a busy corporate lifestyle and being really healthy at the same time.
Well, I, out of experience, have come and seen you, and prior to you, I had another kinesiologist that I used to visit, and I believe that a lot of my personal breakthroughs and my career breakthroughs, even financial breakthroughs, have come a lot out of the work that I get done through kinesiology. It's quite miraculous. It's quite, I can't sometimes try and explain it to my husband, and he's like, sounds a bit woo-woo to him. But I want you to explain to us what it is, what is kinesiology and how does it work? And then we're going to go from there, and I want to talk about how we can really shift some blockages and really make some breakthroughs in our lives, and how it can work well with someone who's being, coached or going through a financial plan and whatnot.
Yeah, kinesiology, it's taken me years to really refine what it is and to explain it, because I remember when I first got it done to myself, when I was the client, I was leaving the sessions just with so much energy and free of the blocks and free of the stress that I went in with. And I was saying, and they do this thing with my arm, and people would look at me like I was on another planet, or I was literally on something. It was quite funny. So my, I guess, elevator pitch or bullet point summary is: kinesiology sits within the natural therapies realm. It is a holistic modality where it uses the technique of muscle testing to find out what's going on. So it's really asking the body, what do you need? What's going on? Where are the blocks? And then what do you need to heal it? So it uses muscle testing or muscle monitoring. It actually came, the modern kinesiology that we know today was established by Dr. George Goodhart, who is a chiropractor. This is over 50, nearly 60 years ago. He got the muscle testing from that physiotherapy model, where you use muscle test to see whether the muscle is working or not, whether it's strong or whether it's weak. What he discovered in his practice, that already strong working muscles, when having a negative stimulus, such as a negative thought or emotion, or they were using bags of sugar at the time. It didn't even need to be ingested. Just with even the client holding that for a couple of seconds would make an already strong muscle weak. So then they played around with it for years and years and years and years. And then there was a group of chiropractors that really created the International Kinesiology group. And with that trial and error, they really then created what's known as sort of the modern kinesiology protocol that's around today. Now, there are apparently over 250 different styles of kinesiology in the world. Some focus on the nervous system, some focus is very physical focused, some is just emotional focused. But the majority of the kinesiology is based in the foundation of muscle testing or muscle monitoring to ask the body what's going on. The form of kinesiology I've been trained in, which is called PKP, which was created by Dr. Bruce Dew. He's a New Zealand medical doctor who discovered this while he was on a trip with his wife to the US, and just saw miraculous changes. His wife actually, she injured herself on a flight over there. She was picking something up from the overhead locker and did her back. They ended up going over and seeing Dr. John T, who created Touch for Health. He was also another chiropractor that used kinesiology. And Dr. Dew saw this chiropractic doctor rub points on the foot somewhere else, not anywhere near the injury of the back. And he watched his wife's spine realign in front of his eyes. And he was like, wow, this is amazing. So then he went on and trained in that, and has then created the International School of Kinesiology. We use the traditional Chinese medicine model. We work with the meridians and the elements, and it's very holistic. So you work with the physical body, you work with the emotional body, you work with the biochemical body. Now, the biochemical body is your hormones, the processes such as digestion, any chemical process that happens in the body. And that also includes environment as well. So biochemicals is very strongly linked to the environmental factors. And then I work also with the spiritual realm also. So it's very, very holistic. In what I do, there's no stone left unturned. If there's a possibility of it, I'll ask the body, A, is this what's wrong? Or B, is this what it needs to get balanced?
I've been through that with you, and you do ask permission to test as well. One thing, I mean, sometimes I've come to you without actually knowing what is going on with me. Just I know that I might be tired, or I'm stressed, or there's stuff going on in my life that is bothering me. But what you will find is like they're the symptoms of the actual cause. That is something I haven't even thought about because my body's actually holding on this stress. And that's, in some cases it has been, I'm going to bring this back to the point of money. And you've actually been able to find, well, that's what's, I want to remember one of the things we did where I think it was a fear of me moving forward with where I was going with my business. There was something holding me back, and we worked on that because the symptom was me feeling like I hadn't made a breakthrough with where I was financially, but there was actually subconsciously me telling myself a story, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm not really great at articulating, as I said, when I tried to share that with my husband, how amazing it is. So I wanted you to give us some examples of how you've worked with someone maybe who's got physical symptoms and cleared them up, or they may have had sort of issues when it comes to their finances, where then all of a sudden you can actually see that they've gone leaps and bounds. Can you give us some examples? Are you happy to share some how kinesiology can work with certain cases?
Absolutely. Without going into the nitty-gritty of people's particular case, just for privacy reasons, I'll kind of give you a mishmash of examples, a real hybrid of different cases that I've seen, even some of the things that I've personally experienced with kinesiology. So, for example, someone will come in with something physical, say an eczema, say a pain, a sore shoulder. They've had the scans. The doctors cannot see anything going on. There's no breaks. There's no tears. The scans have come back, clean and clear. Nothing from the medical diagnostic perspective makes any sense why this client has so much pain in their shoulder. And yes, they'll go and get a massage or may go and get some physio or something. It goes, but it comes back. The great thing that kinesiology does, it's a great dot connector. So you are one holistic being that's had all these experiences from the moment of conception to this moment in time now. You would have had emotional things happen from the moment of conception to your time now, physical things that would have happened, biochemical stresses that may have occurred. And what it does, it looks at your body as a whole and really connects the dots and saying, I know you've got this, really sore shoulder, but where have you been burdening the load financially with your family, where there's no let off, where you've had to pay the bills, just say you're a single mum, you've got the burden of, the school fees, the feeding the kids, running them around, and you just feel weighted down, like there's that, like as I said, that burden on your shoulders. I can do all the physical checks to make sure that the muscles are all in harmony, but by asking the body, and that's the beauty of kinesiology. The great kinesiologists that I've had work done with, the best thing that they do is they ask great questions. So it's about the quality of the questions you ask and really allowing that body to just open up and work out what's going on. So going back to that shoulder example, shoulder, like so much pain. It's really interesting. The trapezius muscles are super, super tight. Then I'll ask the body, is there an emotion involved? Wow, there is. You feel burdened. Interestingly enough, in my emotional chart, burden sits within the governing meridian, which is the yang element. It's that go action element. It's also in the masculine. So you've got a female that's come in with this issue going on, and then I'll ask the time, well, have there been other times in your life where you felt burdened? And then we start to uncover and unpack. Yes, that was related to when I was 16. My mother too was also a single mother. She basically gave up in parenting because she was too stressed and overwhelmed. And I had the burden of mothering my 12-year-old sister and my 4-year-old brother. So It's unpacking all that stress from that timeline. And then, interestingly enough, creating that awareness and bringing that awareness to the conscious, because it would have been sitting under the unconscious somewhere, that burden of all that stress from that age 16, where even at age 16, she may have had financial burdens as well, because she had to then basically run a household of 2 children because her mum's run off and doesn't want to do this anymore. And then rubbing some associated points that the body needed to help release and unblock that blocked chi or energy and allow the flow can all of a sudden miraculously create less pain and less tension in those muscles and in that area. And all of a sudden they feel lighter, they have movement, and then over time the pain can possibly disappear. So that's what I love about it. It seems like magic, but then when you break it down, it actually isn't.
Well, there's so much science behind it, as you've referred to several doctors and their studies. And that story just completely resonates with me. Well, like as you know, the work that I do with money coaching, we take the client back to their childhood, because, you know, our behaviors are created out of a subconscious, and the subconscious is created from a very young age. So all these stories we tell ourselves, often between the ages of 2 to 12 years old, or even a little older. But what I struggle with some of my clients is getting them to really remember some of these things. And I know with yourself, working with you, you know, you'll ask my body, you'll sort of go, okay, Amy, what happened to you when you were 6 years old? And I have to go, and then you'll ask my body some more questions to uncover what that actually was going on, what emotion perhaps, or there's little cues that you give me to remind me of my, you know, experience. And then I'll go, that's what happened, you know, like, you know, for example, when my parents divorced and we went from, you know, having quite a very lovely, you know, quite a wealthy sort of lifestyle, going overseas and everything, to mum being a single parent and everything just being completely, you know, shut down. No fun times anymore, no holidays, no, you know, mum always saying I can't afford it. I mean, you put me through that experience through kinesiology. I do the same thing with my clients, but I find there's only so much I can unlock with words and memories, if they can't remember, if they're holding back, or they've blocked that stuff out, or if they don't even know it's there. So that's why I find the work that you do it correlates so beautifully with mine, because, you know, it just empowers in a different way and brings stuff to light, you know, and actually heals incredibly fast. Once someone's aware, you can't, you know, once you know, you can't unknow. It's pretty amazing. So can you tell me, I mean, that's an unbelievable breakthrough. Have you got any other examples, especially when it comes to, I mean, of course, I'm going to bring it around the topic of money because of what I do, but any other incredible breakthroughs that you've recently seen, either through the work you've done or even yourself?
Yeah, I think going back to what you said before is that money is so hardwired into our subconscious from a very early age. Now, in essence, the subconscious is what drives the bus. So I talk about this a lot, especially with hypnotherapy, is that, and the great example that I always use is you've driven down the road many, many times, or even when you learn to drive a car, let's take a step back. So when you learn to drive a car, you're very conscious where your hands are on the wheel, where your hand is on the gear stick, indicating braking, acceleration. You're consciously aware. But over time, you do that over and over again. It creates what's called a neurological pathway where you literally do not have to think. You may think about pressing the button on your car, but you do not have to think how to drive. You just drive. So who's actually doing the driving? Is it the conscious mind or the unconscious mind? Now, I don't know whether you've experienced it. I have experienced it a couple of times where I've actually missed turnoffs on a freeway because I haven't been fully present and engaged with what I was doing and gone, oh, So who in that short period of time was actually driving the car? Because I did not really have conscious awareness of where I was going. So going then back to money and anything I do with in relation to kinesiology, it's really the subconscious that is running what we do in life, the choices and decisions that we make. Money is very much intertwined by programming. We're not really born with an innate sense of how to deal with money. It's pretty much programmed from our parents or any mentors or anyone that we've grown up with. So I think you do this task, but it's a task I have done with my clients before, where I get them to write down, especially when they're dealing with money, every conscious memory they have of what money is and what it represents. So it could have been the time that you had money. So back in my day, 50 cents got you a lot of sweets at the corner store. You need a little bit more than 50 cents these days. But I remember a time where I had 50 cents ready to go to the corner shop after school. And during the day at school, one of the bullies at school took the 50 cents away from me. So it's like I had this excitement about what I could do with it, but then it was like money gets taken away from me. It's out of my control. So that can be, for example, a program that you don't consciously think of. And then every time as an adult you get money, it all of a sudden gets taken away by something else. And that could have all started potentially from that decision that, money just gets taken away from me, which may have started from, say, from the age of 6 when money got taken away from you in the school playground.
We do, as money coaches, put our clients through that. We call it the money bio. And it's incredible because it really does. I've never had a client not be emotionally affected by it. They write it. And I mean, I remember even going through myself when I went through the coaching process and learning. You write out everything. When you read over it, it's incredibly emotional. So I always believe that there's that connection between your money and emotions. And I see it as energy. And it's how we actually look at that energy. My job is trying to hopefully successfully improve that relationship with money. And why I recommend clients come to see you is that there's always more work to be done. There's always things that are hidden that we don't or are consciously aware. And the kinesiology process, throughout my experience anyway, brings that to light. So because your body doesn't lie. Our brains can shut stuff out if we allow it to. But through that process, you take us through as a patient. I've gone through. There's things that come up that I would have not even thought of because my body's holding in that tension and whatnot. As you said, there's people who've come to you with physical ailments that have actually been a result of either financial stress or perhaps a relationship. That's another example, and money often affects that as well. That can really play out. Have you got any other breakthroughs or examples of how that can work, or even bring us through the process of how you can actually uncover some of these issues?
I've written a few things down here, and there's so we've talked about the patterning from parents. That's a really big one. We've talked, money is hardwired into our psychology, and most of the time money is not a positive representation. I very rarely had people come in going, I'm good with the money thing. Yeah, there are definitely people out there, but a lot of the time money is a negative concept. You've got also the different archetypes of money. You've got the savers, you've got the hoarders, you've got the spenders. There's people that can attract a lot of money, but then all of a sudden it seems to go away. So there's lots of different things. There are lots of different archetypes, but for most people, there's lots of limiting beliefs around money. There's a lot of fear around money, and a lot of people sabotage themselves around money. So there'll be a part of them, they'll have that conflicting idea. It's like, yes, I want to have a lot of money so I can buy a house or buy a car, whatever it is, or send my kids to school. But then I don't want to do the work behind it. I don't want to take action. And that's one of the biggest things that I see with a lot of people in relation to money. They don't do the work. They don't sit down. And now that we have this tapping society where we just can tap, tap, tap away and actually not really go through and look at what we're spending. So I think the biggest thing is to create everything you do everything you do in life has a strategy. I use the example in clinic about cleaning your teeth. If an alien came to land on Earth and they said, "Oh, what is that? How do you do that?" You'd actually, cleaning your teeth, which is something that most of us do unconsciously every single day, has a strategy. You pick a toothbrush up, you put toothpaste on it. Some people wet their toothbrush, some people don't. Some people just put the toothpaste on, some people put a little dot, some people do a long bit. And then you brush your teeth in a particular way, and you'll do little circles, and you may do that for 2 to 3 minutes, up and down, in and out, da, 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 and then you rinse your mouth, and then you're done. That is a particular strategy. And that's what a lot of people don't have, is a strategy around money. And that's where they get conflicted. It's like, I want this and this and this, but they're not taking the action to putting that money aside. They're spending that money. They've got a lot of fear around, like I said before, hanging on to money because they think it gets taken away from them. You know, there's so much going on there in relation to that. Another example is what money represents. So for some people, they want to be successful, but because their uncle, who was really, really rich, wasn't a very nice guy, their representation of money is quite negative. You also hear about the poor artist. You know, the artist or the creative person thinks it's better that they're poor, simply because they can't be seen to be made a lot of money, because it's like, you know, artistic people aren't rich, they need to be poor, they need to be struggling. When actually, in fact, it's the total opposite. They can share so much of their creativity and joy with more people when they are more successful financially.
Yeah, the creators are actually, well, I use that archetype with the money coaching, have a lot of power that they are not tapping into, and that the mentality is because they're slaves to their art, and they don't know how to value something that is so personal and creative often.
Yeah.
It's hard, but that it actually really comes down to more an issue of self-worth and valuing yourself, and because it becomes something that's physical. So there is a genuine balance there. But what I see is also where the power is with the creative is that they can actually manifest, and they are spiritually driven, and they are the actual magician, and they are the warrior. You just haven't learned how to tap into that yet. So, and that's also really fun to work with someone who is creative, because there are a few qualities there that we kind of can unfold. But you're hitting it right. You know, you're 100% right on with that. That they're, you know, the creatives are certainly one that I love to work with for that very reason. But they actually do have so much more power and so much more to share with everybody.
Absolutely.
Make the world so much better.
Totally. But I think exactly what you said, it comes down to self-worth. How do you value yourself? Why would you value, and a great example is, and I've seen this a number of times in clinic, is where, you know, people don't get the bonus that they thought they were going to get, or they get overseen for a promotion. And a lot of the time, that's because they're not valuing themselves. They are minimizing themselves to other people in the office for whatever reason, or they don't have the confidence, they don't have the self-worth. And the minute we flip that on its head and we work around, well, what's the reason why? Where's this coming from? And how do we clear this and rewrite a new script for your life? All of a sudden, you clear that negative energy and that negative programming and that old programming that may have worked once upon a time back in the day, but doesn't serve you anymore today. Next minute, people do get the promotions. They then do get the balances because they feel that value in themselves. And that's massive.
It's actually gives. I was going to ask you a question about the differences with men and women, if in your experience, but before I do that, what you just sort of said reminded me of, I deal with a lot of professional women, but a lot of these women aren't in relationships. They struggle with their love life. And it's exactly the same thing. It's like it's either the career, the partner. It's sort of they can't seem to believe that they can have both. They can have it all. And women do have this sort of crazy way of thinking of ourselves sometimes. And it does come down to our self-worth and the stories we've been told as children, as young women. It's like, when you're the wife, you sort of become the martyr, so to speak. Or if you are a career woman, well, of course you can't have children and can't be married. Even though these days you see so many amazing women do that, these stories are being told to these women back in the day, as you've put it, back in their childhood, and it's carried on with them up until now. They're in their 30s or facing their 40s, and they're going, the clock is ticking, I want to have kids, but it's like they can't believe that they can have both. I've heard a woman come, sit with me, a client of mine, who just sort of goes, I just want to be rescued so I don't have to, I don't think I can do both. I can't have the career and have the relationship. And I'm like, yes, you can. Again,
and
it's
that comes back to sorry for interrupting, to not valuing yourself. Wanting to be rescued is, I don't have the power to do this for me and for someone else. You're totally giving away your power to someone else. And there's different stages for women. So yeah, there's the single woman, and that's a great time to go and see someone like yourself, to go and get your financial ducks in a row, where you don't have children, you're working for chunks of time, because then once you have a child, usually a lot of the time you end up having to take time off. Now, depending on where you work or how your business is structured, sometimes you get paid maternity leave, sometimes you don't. So you need to start planning for those times where you may be out of work for a chunk of time. I mean, I have said a lot of the time, we've never seen financially a time like the Great Depression. Well, with what's happened now in the past month or so with COVID and what's potentially happening on a global crisis, we might be in another recession. We don't know. So how recession proof is your savings? Is your super? Things like that. But then there are also the women who go and have the kids and navigate work, life and balance and things like that. But then the kids get older and all of a sudden they're in a relationship that they're not happy with anymore. He's been the major breadwinner, or they've both worked together, but then he's gone and hid money elsewhere when they've gone to do a settlement, and she's been left high and dry. So I think especially the difference between men and women I see a lot is that a lot of women have given that power over to the man in the household, rather than going, you know what, I need to know where all our bank accounts are. Where is the money you're earning, honey? You're watching the money where I'm earning. What bank account is that going into? Where is that money going that you're spending? Where are those investments? Where are those superannuation accounts? Do I have a will? Do I have a power of attorney? I think a lot of women haven't protected themselves, especially a lot of the Gen X women. And now they're coming into their late 30s, early 50s, going, holy dooly, I don't have enough super. We're also living and working longer. So gone are the times now where you'd retire at 50 or 60. So yes, we're working longer, but life is also more expensive. So do you have enough money to pay for the house, to pay for the things you like to do, the travel and all that sort of thing, when you may not be working further down the track, because you may not be working from the age of 70 to 100? That's 30 years of no income.
Absolutely. And my job, I mean, as a financial advisor, I'm always I measure. I actually, part of it is I create a model and measure that time frame. And it is imperative that people do get that advice. My thing is, as we've put it before, is people that have this unaware at what's holding them back, what's stopping them, or this lack of self-worth. There's quite a lot of things that can be addressed with the work you do and with the work I do. to get people on track moving forward. And as you know, I'm incredibly passionate about wanting to help women get on their feet and believe that they can have it all. Look, all is everyone else's, your own story. Like, you know, people could look at my story and go, you have it all. I've got a new baby, I run a business, I have children. I can tell you now, I'm also very tired sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no perfect world, but what your all is your choice and what you want. And it's about choosing and getting the right people in your corner, getting your tribe, I believe, is new kinesiologist, someone who maybe gives you guidance to meditate, or you train with, or your financial advisor, your life coach, whoever they may be, to help you be on track so you can have your all. You interestingly pointed out before about women who've come through marriages and where their husbands have not shared, you know, been open about what funds he has and knows everything that she's got, and then she's completely duped if the relationship ends. I'm interviewing another lady, a solicitor, hoping next week or the following. We're talking exactly this subject on how women come out of relationships and what to do, and some of the steps they advise on that settlement process, because that's another big part of someone's life. And I recommend at that time as well to go and see a practitioner like yourself, because this comes out in so many different ways, this kind of stress, as you've already pointed out, physically as well as emotionally. And you don't want to be ending up sick, and that's what can happen because of financial stress and relationship stress. And that the kind of work you do can actually prevent that.
I mean, health is definitely the new wealth, and this whole COVID time has really brought that to the forefront. It doesn't matter how much money you've got, if you're not healthy, you don't have anything. If you don't have a good quality of life, you really don't have anything. And that's why it's so important to create a team of people around you. So for me personally, you know, I know where I'm at with my financials. I've got my financial team. I've got my healthcare team that I go and see. I've got my, you know, my medical doctor. I've got my other practitioners that I go and see, my acupuncturist, my kinesiologist that I go and see at different times. I have that team, those teams around me. And when I know, because I don't know everything, so it's great to seek advice when it's like, you know what, actually, I need to get my wills up to date. Who do I go and see? I need to restructure my business. How does that look financially? How does that affect my home budget and income? I need to get the job keeper. I need to do whatever that is, and do that accounting. You know, who do I need to talk to? Who's going to be the expert? Because you can go and do a lot of these things yourself, but sometimes it's best to go and see an expert in that area. Go and see a solicitor if I need to. Where am I vulnerable in my marriage and my financials? I'm always about focusing on the positive, because it's what you focus on, you manifest. I'm not one for let's focus on the negative. However, in saying that, you do need to ask the question. So if, you know, my partner dies, what then happens? Where are we at financially? Do we have any insurances in place? Where does his super go to? Does he have a will? You know, having all those, and then, you know, like you said, oh my gosh, people that go through mediation, divorces, settlement is absolutely heartbreaking. And you see it time and time again. And no one seems to go through that process, whether it's the male or the female, unscathed. There is some sort of level of stress, and there are winners and losers in that process. But it's also being, you know, backing yourself and going, actually, no, I deserve this much money, or no, you know what, this is actually fair, I will give you this much, or asking for super. And look, I know I gave quite a female example before, and I know it definitely does happen to men more and more, that we've got lots of women who are the major breadwinners. But yeah, it's about just looking at everything and going, right, what do I need to do to get really clear? What is my strategy around money? What is my strategy around health and wellness? It's so
Absolutely.
important.
It is absolutely so important. And speaking of male and female, sort of might be a loaded question here. Do you find when it comes to money issues, when you're dealing with healing and the money issue comes out of that session, are you finding that more with men or with women?
I feel from what I've seen, for the men that I've seen, a lot of them feel like they're burdened with that load. They're burdened with having to be the main breadwinner. This is just a general example. A lot of them feel burdened. They are the major breadwinner, but yet their wife's demanding them to do more with the kids and blah 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 blah. But then on the same token, I also do have it sometimes where women feel like, oh my God, I'm having to do everything. I've got to make the money. I've got to clean the house. I've still got to drop the kids off to and from sport. And all my husband does is go to and from work. But I'm doing everything else. So look, there's as many people as there are, there's many examples. But I do find men feel burdened because they're the responsible ones. This is quite generalistic because they have the responsibility. But then women feel burdened that they have to do everything.
It's interesting because both of those, without sounding like I'm kind of stereotyping, as children in our generation, where, if you watch children play, little girls were expected, they would play kitchen, play mummy, and then the boys were to be playing sort of like the role of the one working, the one in the job. Sort of that sexism started from our childhoods, and there's an expectation as we've grown up that that's what the man does and that's what the woman does. Yet we're in a world now where we are both a family, a household in most capital cities cannot survive without both people working.
Mm.
Both partners must work, regardless of whether they can or not. Like childcare has to be
And it's
funded
expensive.
and it's expensive, but you kind of like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I've had many conversations about that with clients, and we've had to look at the numbers and crunch them and go, working is probably the only answer. And most women, like, my experience, are happy to work, but it's also that feeling like that is their responsibility as a childcare, and coming home and the housework or managing the overall house. And the husband feels the burden of maybe I'm not bringing enough in. And that's also something I've experienced with clients is because they might be a blue collar worker and gone off and gotten a trade, and then their wife's excelled and now she's the main breadwinner. And that can also cause challenges in that relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Well.
You can see you men who are the main, where the women's the main breadwinner and they're not earning as much, and you see that power dynamic, and it happens in any relationship, whether the male's the major breadwinner or the female is that power play in relation to who's bringing more money. So if you're bringing in more money, it's like, well, do you get to go out with your friends more, or do you get to enjoy this, or do you get to buy the clothes or not? Or so it's about communication. A is key, and it's about letting go of any stereotypes and releasing out any of those fears and blocks that's stopping you from achieving what you want. But it's always going back to, what is it that I want, and then how are we going to get there?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of partners don't necessarily also have these communications around money. And some of my growing up, we didn't speak around the dining table around money. My family just didn't. But I remember going to some friends' houses, and their parents did talk about the business and they did talk about money. And I've seen over time that those families that had those open conversations around the dinner table about money, the kids were more successful and more confident about money, were more successful and confident about starting their own businesses. I think once upon a time it was very much, oh, you don't talk about money, it's very taboo. But I think it's really important to educate your children the value of money and what you need to do to earn that money. So, for example, if I give you $5, well, what energy was exchanged for me to have that $5 in my wallet as well?
That's amazing. Yeah, that's such a good point. I actually have a she's a doctorate in education, Dr. Kathy Murray, coming on the show soon, and she talks about breaking that cycle. She's also a money coach, so she talks about really focusing in on helping parents with their language and changing that cycle, because as we've said throughout this whole session, it's all comes from our childhood, and in some cases, as you've uncovered, with on the spiritual side as well, it can go beyond that as well. So the work that you do is incredible. I know I've gone leaps and bounds with seeing my own breakthroughs and knowing that there have been either, and I'm being very honest here, lack of worth has been one of my issues. Experiences from my childhood that I blocked out from, having my parents divorced, to go, so that money comes and money goes, so I can make it, and all of a sudden it disappears. So those things I've had to work through as a patient, and also that sense of belief and can I do it? Because I've got these big dreams, big goals. That's that fear, as you've pointed out, is also another one. So when you're doing a session, and I know we're running out of time, so I won't keep it too much longer. When you're doing a session, can you give us some examples of what, either how you can sense it, you're breaking through and you can see that there is actually the answer, or see the client actually go from strength to strength once they've done with the session? Have you got any examples, apart from, you've kind of given a great example with the pain that just goes once you've sort of recognised that. Have you got anything that you could share in terms of where you've uncovered, unlocked some massive blockages when it comes to someone's
I think
journey?
there's been and once again, it's sort of like a hybrid of different things. So for example, someone that's come in with like really bad eczema, really bad stress. Eczema can be quite stress related. It can be environmental stress. And they were going through a really interesting, family estate battle, where the great relationship with the siblings and the aunts and all that all of a sudden turned nasty once the will was read and out on the table. And it does seem like feeding time at the zoo, the few examples that I've had in relation to estates. These beautiful, what appears to be on the surface, wonderful, harmonious families just absolutely turn on each other because money's at stake. So it's once again about releasing out the stress, trusting in the process, and also letting go to the attachment. That's such a great law. It's one of Deepak Chopra's 7 spiritual laws of success, is the law of non-attachment. You didn't have the money to begin with. Yes, it's a fantastic gift or offering, but being detached from the outcome and really just releasing out that stress, a lot of the time turns into the client's favor, because they're not coming with it with all that negative energy.
That's a great lesson. The whole let it go. It's
Let it
so
go.
powerful.
They're getting angry about money that they never have, that wasn't even theirs. Does that make sense?
100%.
And it's creating so much stress and so much pain in their body. So is it really worth it? That's the question you've got to ask. Is it really worth it?
It's, look, a very different scenario, but have been dealing with clients that have lost a lot of money during COVID through the markets just plummeting. But I say, first of all, it's not a realised loss unless you sell out and it becomes a paper loss.
Yeah, like with the superannuation issue with people selling, like, yes, your super's dropped in paper value, but unless you actually cash in on that, you haven't really got a loss. It'll go back up.
That's right. So the whole concept of my advice is just don't look at it, let it go, trust the process. Just trust it'll all come back. Trust trust history. That is the lesson there, is to let it go. Obviously very different, because as you're saying, in an estate situation, it's money they never had. It's maybe money they expect to get, but there is again an expectation. Expectations can really undo us.
And what are you truly valuing? You're valuing, I guess this is my sort of big final point of this, is we're such a society of object referral. We're all about the clothes, the car, the handbag. At the end of the day, on your deathbed, are you going to say, yeah, it was so great that I got that Chanel handbag? I was so happy. You can't take it with you. So what are the things that are of value to you? The things that are really, really important to me are time with my children, is swimming in the ocean, is having fun playing. Because of COVID, I'm now playing the piano again, something that I've taken. And it's like, oh my God, this is such a joy to do. So what are these joyful experiences that really are worth so much more than the material object referral things? And yeah, it's all about valuing. I think it always comes down to releasing the fear and valuing yourself.
Excellent. That's a brilliant way, I think, for us to wrap up. I could continue to talk to you about this over and over again. Perhaps we get you back on, because there's some,
I'd love to.
I maybe next time we talk about unlocking some of the subconscious through using hypnotherapy, because that's another part of the work that you do. But can you tell us where we can find you? And I'm also going to, once this is all up, I'll be putting this on the Sensibility website, so there'll be a link to your website, and to which then they can probably find you in avenues of social media. But if someone's listening, how can they get hold of you?
They can find me at DeAnneJoseph.com. That's DeAnne Joseph, JOSEPH.com. And also on LinkedIn, and also on Instagram. It's DE-ANNE. No, it's not hyphen, sorry. It's DE_ANNE_Joseph on Instagram as well. So yeah, they're the three main channels you can find me.
Excellent. And I'd love to talk to you more. As I said, I could probably keep going, but we'll wrap it up now, and then we'll be in touch, because I'd love to chat more about this, some of the work that you do with hypnotherapy. Thank you so
much. Thanks, Anne. And thank you for the great work you're doing, and really looking at money as a holistic perspective. I think it's fantastic. There's people like that, like you out there, that are doing this great work, and just not looking at it from face value, and looking at it, what is really happening here in relation to money. And it's way more powerful than just looking at the dollars and the cents.
Thank you. Yeah, I as you know, it's a great, I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to be able to look at money so differently, and work with people like yourself, other money coaches that I'm working with, and other financial professionals, because if we all get this part right, it can be a massive game changer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today.
No worries. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, hon.